Okay, everybody, welcome back to On the Roof. Right now, we're going back to where it all began, where it all started. The very first interview ever on the roof was with our guest here, Colin Quinn. Welcome, Colin.
Thanks, Scott.
It's so great to have you here right now. There's so much to talk about, and it's been a long time since we've had you up here. So, how are you? What's going on, basically? There you go.
Well, nothing. I've been just, like everybody else, just kind of in the house, and I've been writing a lot, which is good. I haven't performed stand-up comedy in about 6 months, 5 months, whatever. When I used to do it basically almost, 5 times a week.
Right.
And so it's been, it's been interesting times,
Your particular profession, it's probably the most affected by. I was just talking to my friend Adam, who's a musician, and they can do these Zoom, events and stuff like that. You guys really rely on an audience. You rely on each other's camaraderie, at the different venues that you perform at too. I mean, without all of that, how has things changed?
Well, some people are doing Zoom comedy shows, but it's not satisfying the same way, of course, because when you don't hear laughs, then it sort of throws your whole time. Comedy is about timing, and so when you don't have the response of the audience, we need the audience more than anybody else. I feel like in the performing space, because they basically help us write, or they help us edit our act. Let's put it that way. They do a lot of editing. They don't realize.
Well, listen, I've been lucky enough to watch you put some of your pieces together from an idea into a one-man show, right? And so much of that, from what I saw, depended on you trying stuff out. So you need that reaction on how this went over and how to adjust that particular premise that you were working on or whatever, right?
Yeah, especially because, you're going to do, you've seen me do it in the city and Long Island. So it's like two different points of view from the people. So when I'm trying to work my stuff out, I'm trying to work it out so that that whatever your point of view, it's still funny. You know what I mean? So I'm not trying to make one group of people go, yeah, I laugh because I agree with that guy. I'm trying to make it so that it's funny despite whatever anybody thinks. So it's almost like, that's the other thing about not performing live that doesn't give you. It doesn't give you any, I feel like live performing gives you humility, which is good for comedy. Because, like I said, editing is humility. To me, editing is humility. Editing is saying, oh, I think I wrote this brilliant thing. Oh, no, it's long and it's obvious and it's stating the same thing in 5 different ways. You need to chop it up. And an audience standing like this at a comedy show is humility.
Yeah.
So they're the greatest editors. So without them, you're just going to get, you're going to get overwritten stuff. More. The biggest problem won't be that there's not jokes. It'll be overwritten a lot. Because when you have somebody going, hey, we get it, which is what an audience does when they stop laughing, you keep going.
Yeah, and how do you heckle on Zoom?
Apparently a lot of people think that's the first thing people picked up. You kidding me? How many people got attacked on Zoom?
I experienced one thing where we got hacked, and this like brigade of knuckleheads just came storming through a group and just started like lashing out at people, and like it was so like vile, and then it was over like that, but it was like literally like one of those Florida rainstorms, and then it suns out. It's like, okay, back. I'm going, what just happened? What was that?
Yes.
Holy shit.
But I think they figured out how to stop most of that.
Yeah, well, usually I'm part of the learning curve. That's how life plays. So I just accept that and, try to make it like it's some kind of experience.
I'm working on a thing right now that you would find particularly interesting. So it's like a neighborhood heist movie set in the 90s, early 90s. Brooklyn, Queens, the neighborhood kind of like sort of an Irish Italian thing, which obviously, is like it's like a period piece now. You know what I mean? I might as well be making like an episode of like Brideshead Revisited or something, and but it's really been interesting to write it, trying to write all the little conniving things that, all the little ways people would chisel each other out of a bag of weed or out of food, or just like guys, sitting there talking about somebody, and then later the guy's like, I heard you said this, and you keep getting busted, just all the little fun kind of crazy things that happen,
That's one thing you're really good at. You do pick up on a lot of these nuances that of so many of the characters that New York is known for.
Yeah. I mean, that was my favorite, that was my favorite show. When I had the heart attack, nothing made me, when I was in the ambulance and I thought I was dying from the heart attack, I go, at least I got New York Story out there, because to me, that was it. Like I said, it's a museum piece. Like, that doesn't exist. The personalities don't exist. And so I'm trying to do it again with this movie, since I'm not dead from the heart attack. Now I'm trying to do it again because I'm just obsessed with all the people and what I just want to write it all out somehow. I'm still drawn to it, and the various behaviors that can only exist when you're outside on a stoop in a block, like that thing,
That doesn't even really. Well, you know what? I'm out east a little bit now, so it's a little different when I come in. But when I come in, it's so different. I come in a lot, not since this pandemic, but up into that regularly I come in.
Right.
So much has changed. That element of New York is well, it dies by the minute. I mean, although you still got the stoops, it's just that people deal with them differently.
Yes, but and at the time, of course, we didn't like it. But when you look back in the rearview mirror, it's rose-colored glasses. But nothing's funnier than the nice stoop and the miserable guy coming out with the cigar, with the t-shirt with his gut, miserable with a cigar, flicking in the street, cursing, going back in the house.
There's even if you were on the stoop and it was you had to know the right spot on the stoop, so that you could be comfortable, literally. Like, you know what I mean? There's so much nuance to just that everyone experiences in their own way. But like you can't get away with not going through that unless you don't come out.
Well, I wrote a whole thing about stoops too. Like a whole thing that I tried to put in Cop Show, but we never got to it because it went a different direction. But it was stoops. It's about some people like to sit on the top, some people like to sit on the bottom, some people like to sit next to the rail. You know what I mean?
Right.
And some people like to sit and not let people in the street see them, like in a circle, and just all the different moves. So it's like all that stuff is like almost like a painting or like a ballet sometimes to me now. Yeah. The more I look.
Right. That's one of the great gifts that you have, is to be able to see things that way. Like when you call sitting on a stoop a ballet, like you have to be that observant to be able to make us laugh.
Yeah, I didn't appreciate it when I was growing up. If I would have known what I would have been doing for a living, I would have taken pictures. I would have kept a journal every day. But as we know, I was into other stuff that, I was not going home and writing down thoughts. I was like crashed out. And, if I made it home, it was like, oh.
Yeah. What do you think is going to happen to your profession now? I mean, it's obviously going to be affected. We don't know. I don't think any of us know really what we're going to be looking at when we do get out of here. But not just as a comedian, though, Colin, but as a New York comedian.
Well, I mean, like I said, the big danger to me is that when you don't have editors, suddenly everyone's going to get like too long-winded. You know what I mean? So that's the number one thing that could affect comedy. Comedy's funny when you get to it. You know what I mean? So nobody, even comedians, we're like my thoughts have to be. It's like no. You better get to the why you're having this thought and what's the joke about it. And that's the beauty of comedy. That's what makes comedians good. Is that we don't want to sit around and wait for you for a half hour when you're pontificating. Get to the joke. What's your point? You know what I mean? So that's why books have editors, because or else every book could be 1,000 pages.
Yeah.
Because the writer's like, this is all great, and the editor's like, cut it down. So, and so I guess what's going to happen to comedy? Who the hell knows? I don't know what's going to happen to comedy. I mean, it's going to go outdoors, which is not good for comedy because the laughs kind of go in the air. But it's worked. I've done outdoor shows probably 60 times in my life, you know, just from the venues were outdoors.
Yeah, but not people pulling up in their station wagon, though.
No.
Their Dodge minivan. That's it's tough.
Yeah.
Like you don't know where it's going to go, right? So you try to say, okay, let me watch social media. Let me see. Like remember when MTV changed music? Like it made music more visual, right? Do you want to do you have to be more of a performance artist instead of a joke teller? Is that going to be the direction it goes? I mean, we don't know, but do you want to take educated guesses?
Yeah, right now that's exactly what's happening, right? Like a lot of people are really focusing on just their Instagram stories and just making videos, and everyone's got a podcast, but they also put up all their own stuff, lighting. Everybody's about lighting now. Everybody's about trying to set up a home studio. But it depends. I mean, maybe just because I'm too old to be interested, but it's like I'm not going to try to go on TikTok or, what am I going to do? Just be like, hey, guys, I want to be part of this. It's like I got to do what I think is fun. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I would direct stuff more like I was talking about, like those little, like I would do stuff like the stoop. But, I mean, as far as transferring stand-up onto there, I mean, it's not the same, it's not the same. Even everyone's doing those shows, but then they say, hey, I hate to do it, but I'm doing a show. And it's going okay. Like some people are having some fun, but it's never going to be, it's not, there's something about that spontaneity, or there's something about the chemistry with the live audience, what's in the air, that tension and release is hard to have when it's digital,
There's, like, I guess over time, Dice had that run, Eddie Murphy had that run where they were selling out arenas and big, like at least theaters at the very least, you know what I mean, right?
Oh, yeah.
But they were doing arenas for a while. Maniscalco's doing that now, right? Is there anybody else that big right now? Is he like kind of...
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, for the past 10 years, you had, everybody from Amy Schumer to Bill Burr to Aziz Ansari.
But doing arenas?
They were doing Madison Square Garden.
Well, that's an arena.
Yeah. So, I mean, all those people. There's a lot of people that have been doing Madison Square Garden for a while, for 10 years. And they do arena-type comedy. I mean, honestly, I would never turn it down either. How good is arena comedy? It's a little strange. You know what I mean?
Well,
it's almost like when you go see, if you went to see like one of our old favorites from the old days, like John McLaughlin or some like acoustic guitar guy in an arena, or Youre. If you saw Youre and Jack, in an arena, it's not necessarily the right bass. It's a cool, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a different energy altogether. It's a whole different thing. But that's kind of where I was going with that, because that's all great, and of course nobody's going to turn that down. That kind of gate, you can't, right? But you've established yourself. You're an established comedian. People know what they're to expect when they go see you.
Sure.
You know what kind of audience you're, more or less, right? I mean, people, there's that understanding, right? But that's really, you perform. You're constantly, always somewhere doing your stand-up. You say 5 nights a week. You're out there doing it. A couple of times when I met you down at the Cellar, and you got, Jim Norton's there, Rich Voss is there, Bobby Kelly. You just look at just what's in the house on any given night. There's
Right.
guys that have had all kinds of levels of success, and they're going to be funny every single night. They're just funny. They're
Yeah.
really good at what they do, and you're
Well,
part of that.
those three you mentioned have only had one level of success, but yes, but they're always, but they're always very funny.
But what I'm saying is, you'll always be okay. Like you've already like you've paid your dues and earned your stripes. So like this is going to affect you, of course, everyone, but not as much as some guy that's just trying to break in right now and doesn't know maybe, or has to compete with guys like you right now, because people's money's going to be tight as well.
Absolutely. I mean, it's funny. You're right. It's going to affect a lot of people different ways. Like this, anybody just starting out is dead, but because they can't work out, they can't get in.
Yeah.
And then the guys that were doing okay are in deep trouble. Then the guys who are doing good, they'll cut down a lot. You know what I mean? And some people were just starting to blow up a little bit, and they're going to be having to build back up. So, like you said, when nobody knows where it's going to go, I mean, every business is having this conversation, with different words and different things. But so it's just another business that's in deep trouble. You know what I mean?
You know what? Yeah, but that's the negative side of what could come out of this, right? There's also like people need to laugh, and that's why they go to comedy clubs in the first place. I mean, people do understand how therapeutic it is to just laugh at yourself and each other and everything, just to laugh.
But is it therapeutic to laugh when you're sitting a foot from another person, and what laughter means exactly? Laughter means exhaling breath onto you. People don't need to laugh that badly. You know what? They can tickle each other and stay at home.
Yeah. But listen, that's true. I mean, I mean, you think about it, they don't want you to be in, like, even in churches, because when people sing, that's like more is emitted that way. But there's going to be a vaccine at some point, and we are going to get back to normal. I mean, our loving, brilliant president promises that this is going to go away at some point.
Yes.
He said his prediction will come true.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So when it goes away, I mean, I'll do like you said. I'll go out there and try and see what's out there for me. You know what I mean? But you never know. You never know. People, comedy. I can't imagine what other form it could take. But I mean, the people that would come see me may not want to go out. But young people that want to go see young comedians, that's a different energy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's also part of it too. Like, you get to a certain point where you're just like, people are like, a lot of older people don't like to go out anyway that much. But
you got a real knockaround type of crowd. You got like a really like a good mixed New York energy that comes to see you, at least here in this area.
Yeah.
That they're going to come out because they want your shit.
Yeah, but I mean, I may have to travel a lot more. You know what I mean? Because, I feel like comedy is going to be a lot more traveling now, because not that we didn't travel a lot anyway. It is a traveling business, but even more so because, people are like, hey, I'm not coming to New York. You better come out here, because I'm not. I feel like people really are.
I'm not coming to New York. It's dangerous there. I need you to squeeze onto an airplane or surrounded by people that you don't know without masks. And you come and make me laugh.
Yep. Yeah. But I don't know. I mean,
what is that? The Mexican standoff? What happens there?
Yeah. I mean, I go out. I'll travel. I mean, you got to do what you got to do. But I also, if they put it this way, if there was another way to do comedy, like if all that digital stuff really became the big way to do comedy, I would love it, because it's so easy. It's the difference between going to the movies and sitting in your house and watching Netflix. Netflix, you get your own popcorn, but you do miss the movies, sitting with a crowd, but not that much.
We mentioned earlier, about the kind of work that you put in, like, and I've watched you take an idea and turn it into like a really great show numerous times, right?
Yeah.
with the political climate being what it is, I mean, you were able to even navigate through those waters where you got really you like you unconstitutional, red state, blue state. You kind of nailed everybody. You kind of put everybody in check.
Yeah.
Everybody, and you did it in a good way, tasteful way, where everybody could kind of lift, and you made your point. It's like the trifecta. You know, they were mission accomplished each time, right? New York story as well. I mean, all these things. But political stuff, specifically in this climate, that's what I think is a great place to be right now. Having been able to already do that. Nobody really, I don't know anybody that's done it the way you have.
Well, thanks. Yeah, no, I mean, I feel good about that because, you know, I do believe that everybody needs to be put in check. And I think that's you said that, and it's a very Irish way of looking at it, you know, is people need to be put in check. And that's the beauty, you know. But it is true that, you know.
People need to be deprived. You need to experience deprivation if you're ever going to amount to anything.
Yeah. And, but it's kind of you know, it's just, I mean, look, I mean, the country gets more and more fragmented. You know, people always like, comedy matters for this. It's like to laugh, but it doesn't change anything. This country's more fragmented than ever, and it keeps going this way.
Your point is right, but that's how severe the actual facts are of what's happening right now. But at the same time, laughter heals, man. There's so many people dealing with shit that goes way beyond politics right now. Like, they don't care, left or right. It's like, you know, my kid's got this major disability, or somebody's in the hospital with a serious thing, or, you know, whatever, I got no money and no hope, you know, whatever it is, right?
You're right.
Comedy does come through there. It does.
Oh, yeah.
It does, you know, lift the spirit.
I mean, even me, I read joke books sometimes. People in comedy, comedians laugh at me like, why would you read a joke book? I'm like, these jokes are funny. So, you know, it's jokes. It lifts my spirits because I'm like, that's really funny. Some of the jokes.
Yeah.
And you're right. I mean, I have the same reaction people do, where I'm like, that's great, you know?
Let me ask you, is it an Irish thing, or is it a New York thing, or is it a little bit of both? What is it when somebody says a joke and you go, you won't laugh? You just, or is it, maybe it's even a comedian thing. It's like, you know, you guys are usually tough on each other more so than anybody else, or anybody trying to be funny in front of you. It's not an easy thing to do.
No.
So they say something and you can't laugh. You can't acknowledge that it might have been, you know, but then, you know, you can to yourself later after the fact, right?
No, I mean, well, because we look at it like any business. We're so used to it that we're like, in our head, we're like, that's fine. Like, you can't laugh out loud. You just don't laugh out loud. You know, the only time it's like any other business, but you laugh out loud when you identify. So if a comedian's on stage and you see he's going through something psychologically with the crowd, where he starts to sweat a little bit, you start laughing because you've been there.
Right.
That's funny to us because it's like any other business. I've been there, so that makes me laugh. You know, so it's like anything. You know, if a comedian describes, I come off stage, and this guy comes up to me. You know, like one of the things people do to comedians, they'll go, "You did an hour, right? An hour of comedy. People are laughing. They'll come off stage. You come off stage, and they'll be like, "You were so funny. What's that one thing you did?
Yeah.
You did an hour." The guy says one thing.
Yeah.
Or they go like this. They'll be like, "I thought you were funny. This crowd sucked."
Yeah.
Basically trying to imply you bombed. So it's like any business you're in, when people hit you with a common thing, it's special to you, you know. So that's more what comedians laugh at, I guess, you know. But I read these joke books and I laugh because they're funny because they're not really in my business either, you know. But what comedians do the most, when somebody does a really good bit, like a great bit, you go like this, "You motherfucker," because
you think you had it first.
Like you're telling them that's an area we've all been circling around. You nailed it. That's great. That's like a standing ovation. It's saying you got it. You nailed it. You know?
Is that an easy thing to do? Like, is the camaraderie between like all you guys and girls, is it that competitive, or is it easy to just say, "Hey, that was really good, man," and mean it?
I feel like most comedians they're competitive, but they really do give it up to somebody else. Only a few want to be selfish assholes. I feel like most of them are just like, damn it, that was great. Like, I feel most of them are just like, you know, they're generous about somebody doing something where they're like, damn it, that's beautiful. You know, sometimes it's done phony, but for the most part, I feel like people like, when you see somebody do something good, you're like, you know, it always reminds me, speaking of how old I am, in An Officer and a Gentleman, do you remember that movie?
Of course.
So, the great movie. So the girl, at the end, Richard Gere takes her and sweeps her with her feet. And a friend who's stuck in the factory, who lost the guy because he killed himself, she goes like this. All of them are happy. And she's like the bad one. She goes, yeah, she starts applauding too, like, what the hell? You nailed it. You know what I mean? And I just love that. Because it gives you hope, you know? And in comedy, when somebody does a new joke that's really about something and it's funny and a new angle, it gives you hope too. Like, that's the way to keep the game going, you know?
Yeah. How much of it has to do with, like, we've had this conversation before about, like, just everything having to be so politically correct, and you know, your liberty has been taken away as a comedian in a sense. Like, you can't, like, it used to be racial stuff was like not looked upon as so demeaning, but it wasn't meant to be in demeaning either.
No.
But the climate shifted right now, so it is what it is, right? But you got to be thick-skinned. I've seen you guys with some of the guys you mentioned earlier, like, really give it to each other, man. Like, you know,
Cool.
I mean, it's like, you know, but you got to be thick-skinned because you guys it's all good. It's in good fun and everything, but you have to be cut from the right cloth to be able to give and take that. Don't you think so? No,
absolutely. And some comedians don't like it, but for the most part, you know, we play on a brutal level, you know.
Who's like, coming into the cellar that can't take that, though? Nobody. I mean, you know.
Well, I mean, there's a couple, but yeah, for the most part, they avoid the cellar. You're right. The cellars, if they come in the cellar with that attitude,
you're getting mauled.
What are you doing here? You know? Yeah.
No,
it's true.
Time after time, like one after the other, will just maul the I would think, you know, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Now, how is that as far as like kind of making your bones to be, you know?
Well, it doesn't matter.
That part of the process.
No, because comedy is such a, like, there's people that are hilarious. There's people that comedians find hilarious that will never make it in the business. And there's people that comedians don't think are funny, and they're not necessarily, you know, beloved among comedians, but they'll make it big. It's just, it's like any other business. You know, it's just what's considered fair and unfair is, you know, you can't even think that way. You know what I mean? So, like, in any business, people go, how could that guy get promoted when this guy's really the best, or she's the best? He's getting it, you know. So it's hard to really say make your bones, because there's no bones to make, you know.
Is there anybody that you would go pay to see?
I mean, it's hard to say because I don't have to pay. So for me to pay, it would be weird, you know what I mean? But so it's hard to say. I mean, nowadays, I feel like everybody's got funny.
Okay, so somebody's got an HBO special. You're going to stay home and watch it. You don't have to pay.
Right. Like, I'll watch HBO specials, but like any other business. I don't mention names because there's so many people I know so well that, you know what I mean? It's kind of...
spineless, Quinn. Spineless.
Yeah. Yes.
Spineless.
Absolutely.
All right, so let me go back to these other things he did, the political things right now. You just finished a book, right?
Yeah. Overstated.
And now that's in relation to your last, the Red State, Blue State?
Yeah, but it's none of that. None of the materials from that, yeah.
Right, but how did the idea for the book come?
They came and said, hey, you interested in the book? I go, well, I'd like your book about this 50 states, you know, and the country, because that's the subject at hand. And then they said, okay, do it. So I said, I want to do a long version of each state and just analyze each state, you know.
Oh, see, then forgive me then for taking the liberty, but I remember that bit that you did in Red State, Blue State when you went in and you had like a joke about a couple of things about each state, and that was my takeaway. It was a brilliant show. The whole hour was brilliant, by the way.
Thanks.
But that part in particularly stood out because that was like really funny stuff. So I thought that was kind of like that's what the idea was built on.
That's what it is. It's instead of a joke about that state, it's a whole chapter about that state for 50 states.
Wow, it's great. So what was that process like doing that? How long did that take?
Oh, I mean, it was hard because so many states are very similar. So if you're trying to do different jokes about Idaho, Montana, and Wyoming, you can't just go, hey, there's nothing there, there's no people there. You have to really try to get distinctive about them. You know what I mean? So that's, you want to do Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia, you can't do the same thing. You can't do the same jokes about each cluster of states. You got to do each state individually. And that's the challenge,
Where do you do your research to get all these nuances from 50 different states?
I mean, mostly from my memory. I've been to 47 states.
Well, what about those other 3?
They got screwed.
So bullshit.
Dakotas and Montana. I mean, but most of it.
Really?
No. I mean, I hit them, but I mean, I haven't been to them. But I mean, but I mean, just, you can Google stuff if you need fun facts about them. But for the most part, it's just, free association. Like I'll be talking about Montana, and I'll be talking about, like fly fishing and how celebrities always try to move there. The Dakotas, I'll be talking about the fracking and,
Right.
So it just, you can talk about Fargo and stuff. You can do all this stuff just kind of, you start to think about it, and then, it comes along, but it takes a long time. It takes a while,
Yeah, no, I'm just asking because I'm wondering what your process is. Because I mean, every time I can't wait for. When is this book going to be out? By the way,
September 22nd.
Oh, great! Right around the bend.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's something to look forward to because I mean, you nail this kind of stuff. This observational, like you're good friends with Jerry Seinfeld too, right? And he's produced a couple of your shows, right? And he's so he's one of the most highly regarded observational comedians, right? If not, he's up there in the top. Have you like kind of learned things from him? Or, I mean, do you guys share things? You run things off each other?
No, we talk about comedy, but we don't really do that. You know what I mean? I mean, what I would say I've learned from him is he's a great structure guy in the sense that he's always like, he has a natural, his thought process goes into structure, which is really important and really good,
In what sense, structure? You mean as far as or in general?
Well, when you're talking about things, he's like, why is that being said? Why is that necessary to your show? And sometimes you're like, it's not. And sometimes you're like, because of this. So that's what I would say I've learned from Jerry Seinfeld. Like, really, he's sort of a no fat guy,
Yeah. My dad used to tell me about certain ball players that, maybe they weren't a great college player, but they squeak into the NBA somehow, and they'd have like a 10-year career. Got maybe a journeyman, maybe not getting a lot of playing time, but every year they'd be somewhere and they put together a career in a pros. And he says sometimes it's the guys you just when you get an opportunity you just can't screw it up. You just get the opportunity and just don't mess it up. Seinfeld took that theory and blew it out. I mean, look what he's like. Very few, if any, comedians ever reached that level of success, that he took it.
So you're saying he's like Matt Gukas?
He's more like the Louis Dampier. Matt Gukas is a good one, though.
No, he did. He definitely he achieved something iconic,
Yeah, and he seems good about it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's not like he's still. Does he still do the thing at the Beacon or until the
he was actually
residency, right?
He was gonna do I think it was his last year doing it then, but he still goes out every weekend, still writes all the time, does stand up all the time. Not now, but I'm just saying he was doing that up until this.
Right. See, and his stuff was so New York too, so New York. Even Seinfeld the show was so New York. It was like that's so easy to relate to. I mean. And I guess everybody does. These were national success. Steinfeld was a national success. It wasn't a regional.
Yeah.
I was talking with my friend earlier, and he's a guitarist, and he's a real New Yorker, grew up on the Lower East Side. And there's something to be said for when you make it in any kind of entertainment business. And I'll pose the same question to you. Is like, there's so much of your identity is in your New Yorkness, your authenticity of just, it's not an irreverence. It's just a kind of, I don't know, maybe stereotypical in a sense, but that's who we are. You've just been able to kind of really convey it better than most.
Right.
Is that the gift?
Yes. Yeah. It's exactly. It's just conveying what we are, because that's what we are. So all of us are like the same as what I'm saying, most of us, but it's right, conveying it to people, like articulating, no, this is what it is. So when people go, why do I love New York people, or why do I hate New York people? It's like, here's why. Because it's
the same reasons.
This is the reason, right?
Yeah. We've all grown up with people, too, that are funny. Like in school, in the parks, on the stoops, whatever. They're really funny. But it's never going to go to the level where you're going to stand up in front of people and make them laugh. Like that, the way you've done it. Like, so what, when did you come into the point where you said, I can do this on the level that, it's not playing a pickup game of basketball. You got in with the pack of big dogs.
Right. Well, when I started, when I started doing comedy, I was terrible, but the comedians loved me. From day one, the comedians noticed me. And that kept that confidence.
What does that mean? How can you say you were terrible if the comedians love you and
the audience wasn't laughing?
That's what measures it, huh?
The audience wasn't laughing.
Okay.
But I would come up, I would walk out after bombing, and I bombed frequently. And all the big shot comedians would be like, "You're funny, man. That was hilarious. You're so great." And I was like, "What the hell are they saying?" I feel like I'm too dumb to know.
Were you thinking that maybe they were patronizing you? I would feel that way myself. Like,
No.
I wouldn't believe you if you really thought I said something funny and you said it was funny. I would be like, yeah, you're just trying to soften the blow.
Well, first of all, if they said that, they wouldn't. I'm saying they would come and hang out with me afterwards. Like, these were comedians that were bigger than me, so they didn't need to say anything to me. And it's not like.
So you felt the authenticity in what they were saying to you. You felt it. You.
Oh yeah, they wanted to hang out with me.
Okay.
They wanted to be friends with me too and socialize. So, yeah. Oh yeah. No, if you're bombing all the time, people don't want. If you're not that funny.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. But they knew, they saw it, and I didn't even understand what it was. But I was like, hey, they're gonna keep me in this game,
One thing that you're notorious for is your work ethic, the time that you put in.
Yeah.
They say, to be successful, you got to do 10,000 hours or, whatever the...
Yeah.
Right. But I've read Chris Rock in an interview credit you with, showing him the discipline it took to get to the next place. Adam Sandler and others as well. But these are names. These are really, these are big... These are guys that never have to tell another joke again, ever.
No, and they all started with me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I was a couple of years older, and they just saw that I would work all the time, and they just started doing it. You know what I mean?
So were you doing for them what these other guys did for you?
No. I hung out with Chris and Adam. We were all at the same clubs. But we would go out to the diner afterwards and write. And I was always writing before I went on stage, so they just did that. But the older comics, they gave me so much positive reinforcement just because I was a comedian's comedian. And I can't explain why I was. I don't understand why I was to this day, but it's always been that way. If I died tomorrow, the audience would be fine. So I don't sell out big arenas. I don't sell out theaters. I do okay with a crowd, but it's been the comedians that have really been my kept me in the game.
Yeah. Pryor, Carlin, Lenny Bruce. These are the standard bearers for everybody that's ever going to chuckle, right? Yeah. What about the next level of guys or women that kind of who you thought just somebody who you particularly liked what they did?
There were guys that when I started, that we looked to in different ways. So like there was a guy named Rich Jenny.
I was just going to go there. That's where I was going.
So
Go
Rich
ahead.
Jenny was a guy that we comedians go, watch this guy, because he was doing all his material, these long, elaborate bits, you know what I mean? And we'd just get up there and just add on to. So he was a style of guy that comedians would go, wow, this guy's really taking it seriously and doing all this work to make this elaborate thing. And like, Seinfeld and I'll tell you, one of the early guys who people used to love was Gilbert Gottfried. Gilbert Gottfried used to do stuff back then. He doesn't really do that stuff anymore, but he would do these long, elaborate routines that was so funny. And at the time, it was very groundbreaking. So like one of his big routines was he would do celebrities. He goes, now I'm going to do some impressions. And he goes, Boris Karloff, being sarcastic. Sure. So another guy, Humphrey Bogart at the post office, stamps. He would just do one-line impressions, and it was so funny. But at the time, it was kind of like edgy because crowds would be like, hey, where's the routine? So he's doing good impressions, but only one word. So he had a lot of stuff that was very interesting at that time, But Lenny Bruce, Colin, when I was growing up, Lenny Bruce, Colin, and Pryor was probably number one for all of us. Him and Colin were the guys that really set the standard. And Lenny Bruce was the guy that broke open. I mean, not necessarily his act, but what he did. Nobody had the balls to do before. You know what I mean?
Lenny Bruce.
He changed the whole game. Yeah.
He broke through the door.
A big influence on a lot of comedians from my era was Sam Kinison.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Because he was funny, and he was sort of like, just the outrageousness of a guy doing comedy, starting out calm, and then just screaming his rage, primal rage.
And going right after the most sensitive subject matters.
Pain and rage.
Yes.
And just going.
Yes.
It was just great. So he was another guy that was very big among comedians.
What about Red Fox?
Yeah, but Red Fox was so funny, but he wasn't like a writer. So a lot of his jokes, he made me laugh, but it wasn't necessarily he was writing all original material. He was just a funny guy.
What about Mooney?
Mooney wasn't around. He was an LA guy, so we didn't really see much of him.
Right.
In those days, if you were not if we didn't see you live, nobody saw you because, you know what I mean? It wasn't like YouTube. Nowadays you can say, oh, Paul Mooney, look him up. You know what I mean?
So what about what you do from now? The book comes out in September.
Book comes out in September.
You wait for this. You got to wait for the life to present itself, right?
I'm just writing, like I said, I'm writing that movie, and maybe I'll try to do small things, like small scene. Like I would like ideally to do just small videos, like you're talking about, of these characters doing this behavior. You know what I mean?
Your one-man show, when you did pick any one of them, we could speak of anyone. The same question will apply to anyone. Do you need an audience for that?
Yes. But
to develop it.
What's that?
To develop it, I would say yes. But what about once you got it?
What's that now? Once I got it?
Once you kind of got it.
No. But to develop it, I need them. You know what I mean? But like I said, I could do one right now. I have a new one, but it'll be rambling because I don't have that audience going.
Non-stop, man.
You know?
Right? You're non-stop. You work, man. You're a worker.
Yeah,
you're a working man's comedian.
Like the working man's dead?
Except alive. Man, all of these Haight-Ashbury references today. Like, wow, Colin being extra hip.
But I never think of the dead as Haight-Ashbury. I think of the dead when I listened to them. So like the 70s.
Right. But I get a kick out of you too because you're one of there aren't many people that I know of like that, like loved Hot Tuna.
It's the best. But in fairness to Hot Tuna, I love them, but I didn't start out loving them for the right reasons. At the beginning, I was like, I should like this band because that means you're a music connoisseur. If
yes.
you like it.
Well, yes.
So I went in there with the idea that I wasn't going to not love them from day one.
But didn't we all have somebody like, I didn't have an older brother, but if you had an older brother, like somebody in that crew was cool, and what they listened to was where you were going to go for music.
Yeah.
If it didn't get that approval there, it was,
Yeah. And it was like, yeah. Oh, I see what people listen. Exactly. So all my...
Act as if until you become as if.
What's that now?
Act as if until you become as if.
Well, I have a little thing in my book right now talking about Mississippi, and I'm talking about Robert Johnson, and I mentioned how when I was in my 20s, I bought a Robert Johnson box set, and my friend Lou came up to me and goes, "What are you doing with a Robert Johnson box set? You don't like Robert Johnson. You don't even like that kind of music." And he really busted me.
But yeah, okay. Sorry to hear that.
Well, it's true. Robert Johnson, Stevie Ray Vaughan, all those long guitar, it's just too much for me. I mean, I don't enjoy it.
Listen, I remember seeing Hot Tuna coming and walking out of CW Post, and his son was coming up. I mean, that was what that qualifies as long. You know what I asked? I asked Youre the other day. How did that evolve into playing like that? He goes, "Well, if you ask my ex-wife, she'd be telling you that I just stayed up there so long because I was just afraid of coming off and facing the wrath." He goes, "There's some truth to that, But
I like long guitar solos. That's all I'm trying to say. I'm going on record right now as saying Joe Satriani, Stevie Ray Vaughan, I appreciate their mastery, their genius, but it's too long, those guitar solos. I don't like it.
Wow.
I think I like acoustic guitar.
You sound like an old yenta right now. You're just like, I don't know, the long guitars, it's too much.
I think I'm one of those fans at Newport that booed Bob Dylan when he picked up electric.
They all did. And that's a weird phenomenon, right? That's really weird.
I love it.
But I'll tell you a couple of things music-wise. I remember going to Live Aid, and at the end it was Bob Dylan, Keith Richards, and Ronnie Wood. And they're playing, and I was shot. And that was a long day, a night, whatever. And I just remember going, this sounds like they're playing three different songs, the three of them. Like, they were like, this is like horrific. And when you listen back to it, it's like brilliant. I'm just like, what was I mean, wow.
Well, it's also true in my book, which I don't know if you'll agree with me or not. I also make a slam against the Tom Petty, Roy Orbison, George Harrison, Bob Dylan supergroup.
The Traveling Wilburys.
I did not like them.
Okay, why not?
Because they were anticlimactic.
Wow. Yeah. It's, when you're a Beatle, I would think everything else is anticlimactic. I mean, it's the way that goes. Yeah. Yeah, all right. I remember, too, going to see Zeppelin, man. We used to sneak into the Garden, man. I remember they played 6 nights. It was like, I think for when they did the movie.
Song remains the same?
Yeah, but the movie's out, so now they're touring for the movie, right? So they play 6 nights. I get into the Garden for $2 every night. So I went all 6 nights. But I remember every time Bonham went into a drum solo, I go take a piss. This is, you know exactly how long it's going to be, and it's just like unbearable,
I love it.
It's so great. Tomorrow, listen, speaking of Mississippi, tomorrow I'm going to be meeting with Corky Lang. He wrote Mississippi Queen.
Love it.
By Mountain, right? And he's a drummer, and he's like, I just had to rifle through his book last night. It's so interesting when you see people that, that's why I get fascinated talking to people. Like, as a spectator, I have my perception of,
Sure.
And just to get the other side of, what goes into it, and right. There's just so much more to the picture to be able to get. Yeah. This guy came across, he was trying to write an autobiography, never could figure it out, and they're all the same, and, it's just, who cares, right?
Yeah.
But he wound up, his mother passed away, and he went and he found, she kept every letter that he wrote to her from the road. So from 1963 till I guess, she passed away in 98, so, whenever the letters, and so that was it, his letters to Sarah, that was his mother, and the stories that went in between the letters. Just, I'm like, but this is what I want to, I couldn't wait to start that book.
No, that's an amazing book.
that's exactly what I said. As soon as I heard the concept, I'm going, I want to read that. I just read Steve Howe's book, the guitars. Yeah, I mean, this was a waste of money, time, everything. It's just boring, nondescript. Who cares?
Yeah.
Self-indulgent.
But even when they're trying to be good, the fact is you can't remember all those things. He's got the letters. That's what makes it so amazing.
Yes, but the format, just like, it's not like everybody's telling their story. Like, okay, but how many stories are you gonna read? Yeah, it's their story, and then it's their story. You gotta give it. That's what and the reason I'm going here now, it's a side thing for music, but to bring it back to you, it's like you have a knack for doing that. You come up with these concepts on how to deliver a piece. There's nothing. I mean, there's so much political angst going on, and you were able to deliver one after the other. Routines, like not just like a one-man show. It's not a routine. It's a lot more than that. Brilliant throughout. And like I haven't really seen anybody really be able to hit their stride with that the way you have.
Well, thanks.
Oh no, thank you.
I'll take it.
No, you got great. They were so well received, every one of them, right?
Yeah.
Is there one that you're most proud of?
New York Story.
Why? Because New York?
Because it was, like I said, it was our thing. You know what I mean? The behavioral stuff, and it all made sense to me at the end. I didn't know it was going to. And I was like, by the end, I was like, yeah, it makes sense that all these people combine to make this personality. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I remember, like, the things that, and we went over this last time, but all the different games we played and things we did just to kill time and just get through, like, 'cause you're hanging out. It's like, get out of the house and,
Yep.
And I remember like me moving out to LA and moving down to Atlanta, and when you meet people from different, they can't even comprehend what you're talking about. And this was all second nature to us, the things we did, and that they would consider criminal.
Yeah.
But it was second nature, right?
Well, they were criminal.
Some of them were, but harmless, like for kids. It was city life. It was like urban life, right?
Yeah.
But now. I wonder, because things have changed so much, and maybe thank God for a lot of it too, but that experience is kind of lost on a generation.
Yeah, no, I know. I mean, it's, well, they've said before this now, I mean, before this, they were saying kids don't like to go outside. They always want to stay inside on a video game, and they don't play outside. Now, nobody's going to play outside.
Yeah, right.
Outside is over.
Yeah. But you know what, too? Like, think about it, too. If we were I think about this sometimes, too. People that are so unwilling to do this, like, I was sick, and I went through what I went through when I was sick was what you went through with your heart attack. I thought thoughts that I never, ever thought before or since.
I remember you telling me the next day.
Yeah. And those, like, I question some people who tell me they were sick even, and they won't, they're like, skirting, through shit. I'm just going like, wait a minute, man. Like, if it's that just easy to forget, it couldn't have been that profound.
Right.
Maybe I'm being judgmental, and I don't mean to be.
No,
but,
I mean, look, some people didn't have it. You had the real, a lot of people had the mild cases. Yeah.
But when people that haven't experienced that, right? I understand that this just like somebody who didn't like what I went through. I can't look at it light, but I can't preach like everybody's supposed to feel what I felt, because I would be just as skeptical if I didn't go through this.
Sure.
I know that. That's just the truth.
Sure.
But it's one of those things that changes your perception towards a lot, in a sense.
That's right. That's right.
But once we get back to normal to some degree, I think it's all going to be like everything else. We got through 9/11. We get through everything. We will, get through. What do you think is the thing that we need to do? And this is like a serious question. What do we need to do as a collective?
That's a question. If I knew the answer to that, I'd be the head of the world.
Smarter people than you get paid to figure that out. Is that what you're trying to say? I just thought maybe you had something profound, like you could wax poetic on, take me off on a tangent.
Believe me, I want to. I mean, I wrote a whole book about the country. I want that to be the thing. But this thing is just too unreal. Like I said, we don't even know anything yet. Like you said,
That's
maybe
the whole thing, right?
it's pops up, then it comes, then it seems like it's calmed down in some countries, then it comes back in another country, then people are, it's too hard to figure it out. It's just too contagious.
But you're a sports fan, and now baseball's starting tonight. I mean, does it mean anything to you?
You see all the cardboard cutouts in the stands.
This is what I'm saying. This is so absurd, right? It's bizarre. It's like ridiculous.
It's
but
crazy.
I don't give a shit if they play or they don't play. It doesn't,
I know.
It's bigger than that.
Yeah. It's so true. I just, everything's just so crazy. It's hard to figure any of it. You know what I mean? I don't know.
I think we just weather the storm, and the key is
see what happens.
Being here when it gets back to normal. That's the whole thing. So whatever we got to do there is that's what I'm going to do anyway. But anyway, listen, Colin, you got anything coming out? You got any social media? You doing anything? What?
No, they can always go colinquinn.com to get the book and stuff. I guess.
And how did they get the book? Besides, is it just on your website? Like how is there any Amazon
website? And you can do the old pre-order.
Go to Amazon. Overstated by Colin Quinn.
Yeah. And
you can pre-order it now, and it will be on sale on September 22nd.
Yeah.
All right. So hopefully anybody watching this will get a jump on it and get a pre-order and get that.
Okay. Oh, all right. Hey, that's the greatest shirt of all time, by the way.
I wore it for you, Colin.
That's best.
It's I fucking do that. Well, listen, I want to thank you again for just coming on here and doing this. You started this. This was just an idea. It's kind of hopefully morphing into something. And if it wasn't, I mean, my friend Adam, who I just did, I mean, I was able to go to him and go, hey, I just did this with Colin, and that, the momentum started, and I'm really indebted to you for being a great friend, so thank you.
Same here.
So listen, anybody out there, please, subscribe to my channel, On the Roof with Scott on YouTube, and look up Colin Quinn, colinquinn.com?
Sure.
The website? Alrighty then. Listen again.
All right, buddy.
Carl, thanks so much. We'll see you soon.
Yes.
Give peace a chance, damn it. Later.